What's up everyone, it's United Weather here. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the tropics, where we now have two areas we need to be watching over the next week, and one area that has the potential to bring some impacts to the southeastern United States. So taking a look at the latest outlook here from the National Hurricane Center, as you can see, we do have two areas here. Our first area is highlighted in an orange color, which means it has a medium chance of development. And if we hover over this, you can see it has a 30% chance of development over the next 48 hours, and over the next week, a 60% chance of development. So this is most likely going to be our next tropical storm that we're going to be dealing with this season. However, it's most likely going to stay out to sea once it develops and not have any impacts on the United States. So that is definitely some good news, but this will most likely be taking that H name for our hurricane season. Now, the area of interest we do want to be focusing on for this video, we want to be keeping a close eye on, especially if you are in the southeastern United States, is this orange area down here. Now, it does only have a 0% chance of development over the next few days, but over the next week, it has a 20% chance of development. So obviously nothing is expected to develop here for at least a week, so there is still plenty of time for things to change. However, our models, which we will take a look at in a second, are showing a pretty strong signal of development here. So even though the National Hurricane Center says only 20%, there is a pretty good chance that this develops into some sort of tropical system over the next week. So going ahead now and taking a look at some of our weather forecast models, the first model we're going to be looking at is the GFS, or the American model, and this is September 22nd. So as you can see here, there is not much activity out in the Atlantic. We do have this system here, which I just talked about. That is our area with a medium or 60% chance of development from the National Hurricane Center, and that is what will most likely be our next tropical storm. And if we continue to move ahead here on the GFS model, you can see it does develop into a pretty strong tropical storm before eventually heading further out to sea and not having any impacts on the United States. But now by September 24th, you can see this area down here, which is our 20% chance of development area, does start to get going here in the Caribbean. And if we move forward here again, you can see by September 26th, it's already in the Gulf of Mexico and pretty close to Florida. So do keep in mind that this is only one model run, and it's still, as you see in the top right of your screen, 200 hours out. So a lot of things can change with this, but mostly every model, with the exception of the European model, which we'll take a look at later in the video, is showing some sort of system in the Gulf of Mexico related to this area that we're going to be watching. And if you go ahead and zoom in here on the GFS model, you can see it is a 996 millibar storm. This will be a moderate, maybe a little strong hurricane here in the Gulf of Mexico. This will be on September 26th, and as you go ahead forward here, you can see it develops into a 987 millibar storm. Now, this is pretty weak compared to what other models have been showing, which is a good sign if you're on the Gulf Coast of Florida. A tropical storm for you guys wouldn't be too bad to deal with. And if we go ahead and move forward here on the GFS, you can see it kind of just climbs the east coast of the United States, and that's one of the solutions that models have been hinting at over the past day or two that could cause some problems even after the storm makes landfall. There is a possibility it climbs the east coast and brings heavy rain, flooding, and even some strong winds to basically the entire east coast as this thing moves to the north after it makes landfall somewhere along the Gulf Coast. Now, switching over to the Canadian model here, you can see by September 25th, you do have your system down here in the bottom part of your screen at 987 millibars, and as you continue to move forward here, pretty similar to the GFS model, into the Gulf Coast of Florida and up the east coast. So I think you guys are getting the general idea of what most models are saying with this. Now, keep in mind, I'm not saying that this is exactly what's going to happen. This is just to give you guys an idea of what the models are showing right now. This is just the latest information the models are giving us about the storm and the general area that should be watching out for this. I would say is anywhere along this area here, maybe even areas on the east coast of Florida. I would keep an eye on this too, because we know how far those impacts can spread from the center of the storm. So definitely anywhere in Florida, anywhere in the southeastern United States, I would be keeping an eye on this storm over the next week. Now, taking a look at one last operational model here, this is the European AI model. Now, you guys might be thinking AI isn't that accurate for weather. However, for the last storm that we just had made landfall in Francine, this model was pretty spot on. A week out, it was pretty much locked on target into Louisiana with a Category 1 hurricane, which eventually did happen. So it was pretty accurate for the last hurricane we had here in the United States. So I'm going to be just taking a look at it here again. Take this with a grain of salt. It is a fairly new model, so it could have just gotten lucky last storm, but just because of the accuracy it had, I will be taking a look at it for the sake of this video. And if you can see here, September 27th, it is a little bit further west than what the GFS and the Canadian model were showing here, with a 986 millibar storm right in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico rather than closer to Florida. However, if we skip ahead here to September 28th, you can see another storm making landfall in Louisiana. Again, still very far out, and this is only one model, so take this with a grain of salt. But this will be a 970 millibar storm making landfall to the south of New Orleans here. And this will be around September 28th. And if you continue to move forward, it eventually does climb the east coast of the United States. Still a pretty strong storm. And the reason I think that anywhere along the east coast of the United States should be pretty concerned with this storm is because of this trough here. If this storm makes landfall, even Louisiana, anywhere in Florida here, it's going to kind of merge together with this trough. If this trough is in the position that the European AI model is showing, it can kind of merge together with this trough here. And what will happen is that it's not going to be a tropical system, but it will kind of, combine their energy together. It'll create a huge low pressure system. And if you go ahead and switch back to the preset map here on the AI model, you can see exactly that. It kind of creates a 985 millibar huge low pressure system over the Northeast. Again, keep in mind this is kind of far out, obviously. It's only one model, but I will say some models have been hinting at this. I wouldn't be surprised if this happens because we see that a lot. We saw that with Isaias when it made landfall in North Carolina. It kind of combines with the jet stream here and created a huge storm up in the Northeast, which even though it was, pretty far inland, it still brought some strong winds to parts of the Northeast, and that was because of the baroclinic energy from the jet stream could help strengthen the storm. And that's what could happen here with this system. That's definitely a possibility here with this system after it makes landfall. And we just take a look here at the 10-meter winds. These are the surface winds on the ground. You can see here the AI model here is showing some pretty strong winds. This would be 20, even 30, even 40 mile an hour sustained winds closer to the east coast of the United States. That would definitely be a pretty big issue. So it's definitely something you want to watch. Everyone along the east coast should be watching this area of interest. You should be watching this storm. I will leave a link to the National Hurricane Center's website in the description below so you guys can stay up to date on the latest with this. It is still a week away, so these models are just kind of guessing where the storm is going to develop and how it interacts with the weather pattern that we're going to have next week. So by no means am I saying this is what's going to happen, but this is just one of the possible outcomes with this storm over the next week. So with that being said, that is going to be it for today's weather forecast video. If you guys did enjoy today's video, remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. It helps to get my forecast out to more people, and it also helps to motivate me to make more videos for you guys. So with that being said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Stay safe and peace out.